New Thought Media Network. We are a global broadcast network of positive music, media, and entertainment, inspiring humanity's evolution along the journey of enlightenment and creating a world of love, peace, empowerment, and prosperity for all. New Thought Media Network. Positively inspiring.
And hello again, dear ones. Dr. Robert with you over here.
Rev Z right here.
And this is New Thought today for December 3rd, 2024. Here we go, Z, racing straight headlong into the holiday season. There's more days of light and celebration ahead, and it runs all the way through to the end of the year. So are you prepared? Are you ready?
Oh, I'm ready like Freddie to rock real steady.
Exactly. Perfect.
I mean, it's as the saying goes, the time is now, this is the hour. In
Yes.
that we all know what to do or what we want to do, or I mean, we all have a knowingness. Let me put it that way. That's anchored to something bigger than ourselves, that understands it's connected to everything. And when we can open up to that, and that means we got to do some work. We got to let go stuff. We got to release some stuff. We got to complete some stuff. We got to be stepping into something brand new or transformation. And part of that is this whole idea of humanitarianism and service, to lead by example, to begin to help people understand this idea of, or begin to at least flirt with this idea of mystery and mastery and transformation and what that means, and then wholeheartedly step into a place of new beginnings from a global perspective.
Well, and I think that's the biggest part. You just said it right there. New beginnings from a global perspective, because even though it would appear the rallying cry of going backwards has won the day here in America, what I'm stepping into, and I think is imperative for all of us, and we were talking about this in the pregame show here a bit, is we have got to stay the course, but more importantly, also step up. And, well, we named the title of the show of it, How Do We Walk the Talk? How do we as individuals, as communities, as an organization, as organizations, really walk the talk of, say, we are New Thought. We all its wonderful branches, all its various forms, all its various subcultures. We are a culture of New Thought, and we're here to be heard.
Yeah. Well, and I think icing on the cake, or the pole that it all stands on, is that when there is one thing that's 360 degrees, and you only have the ability to take in a certain number of degrees, I don't care what it is, unless you move, or unless you move the thing. But once we, and that begets tiresome. I mean, that's just a whole nother problem to itself. But when we can understand that, we can all work together. I mean, the titles that's part of our challenge. I think a lot of us have gotten stuck with these titles of I'm this, I'm that. And yeah, it's good to have an identity and be able to express from that identity because you bring something special to the table. But just like everybody else at the table got something special too, and it's the allness of what we bring to this table that makes it go.
You almost make it sound like we're preparing for Thanksgiving dinner with the family again.
Yeah, well, yeah. I mean, that's what it's gonna take.
Yeah, and the willingness to sit at that table and say and listen as much as we speak, and be as humble as we are promotive
Yes.
of
Yes.
our belief system and our. But again and again and again, I keep coming back to that point that this is that time. This is that moment. I really believe this is the opportunity that New Thought steps up and makes a difference in the lives of people the way, this is an interesting thing to say, but the way it once did.
Yeah. Well, you know, you call to mind this whole, they have we have different labels for codifying or for lack of a better word, an environment or a thing. But the age of Aquarius, I'll throw that out there as a defining set of ideas.
Okay.
Is the time that is now, a time where information is infinitely available. I mean, infinitely available. Knowledge, data is at infinite levels, but it takes the actual living of a life to create some wisdom out of that, to be able to track it down and teach it. And what we're saying in New Thought is that we have looked at all of the ways of living, and we think all of it needs a new thought, and we want to be an example of what that thought is by asking the question. The thought is the question, really. We should call it question thought.
Question thought. You've said that before. I've heard you say that before. Exactly. So, and we have a colleague that likes to call it next thought, and we call it true thought.
Mm-hmm.
And right, and we can call this, that's again, that to me, that's part of the beauty of it, is it doesn't really matter what you call it as long as it works.
Yeah,
I really don't care what you call me. I'm gonna get the joke out. It doesn't really matter what you call me as long as you don't call me late to dinner, right? You know that.
Yeah.
And
yes.
So if we're in the age of Aquarius, how come it doesn't look like all those hippie movies from the 60s?
That was the gateway to basically what that time period showed us, because it was the ushering in of this whole new idea of self-expression and all of that, but it was all of that for a reason. It was to make a point for a global inclusion, right?
Okay. Yep.
But then those individuals, or some of those individuals, stepped into the other side of the arena and took that off, right? A lot of those guys and gals became corporate CEOs or big corporate guys because they were trying to spread. Now you look at what I think we're talking about with New Thought. We've been around for a while, but we're kind of low key. But now it's time to step up on a grander stage, and to do that, you got to be out there. You can't, you just can't. You can only share among the group for so long, and it's going to get stale. The message has to go out to everybody, and we got to be the example. And that's the way we do it. Example. Because religion churches, I think in all denominations, are declining members, or they're all of a certain age.
Well, that is, we are well aware of that at this point, right? We know that this is a predominant aspect of what's going on. I've got people that love to scream in my ear of how exclusive some of New Thought is in its middle-agedness, in our inability to understand or to embrace. I'm looking for something I want to add to this conversation here, and having a tough time understanding how it is that we can't just pivot on a dime to embrace a completely different perspective of how we do this, of how we share New Thought.
Yeah.
But we get to experiment. I keep coming back.
Because
I keep coming back again and again and again and again to this point of we are doing it differently with the best of intentions to keep our traditions and our history and our lineage alive.
Yeah. That to me, I mean, that is the whole idea. You know, we are religious scientists, and the greatest teacher, the greatest scripture is Mother Nature, Father Time, if you want to call it that. But when we look at this environment, we look at this planet, you go to a rainforest, which is one of the most studied, most revered, most misunderstood things on this planet. Everything has its own individuality to create that oneness there that they're still working to find out. New animals, new plants, new whatevers, because it understands the idea of wholeness. And yes, I keep my identity, but hell, if I need to get that up, I get that up, because the thing that's prime is life at any level you want to look at it. So this idea about, if I'm running fast, I need my lungs to breathe faster so I don't pass out or die. And I need my heart to beat faster. But when I'm done running, fall back in line and basically don't be heard of. That's what we got to do.
It's that simple.
It is. Yeah. It's like everybody has value, right?
Yes. I've been called recently to speak a bit more and to revive something that I did a while back, and I'm not sure how it's going to emerge, but I've been reminded of a book called The Trance of Scarcity, and the main thrust of the whole thing was we have to build circles of belonging, and sometimes those circles of belonging are going to be really easy. Sometimes those circles of belonging are going to take some work. And and even the ones that seem easy at the beginning will often take work and take some work as we go along. And even some of those that, so I think of affinity groups, and let's just pull out the idea of a men's group at this point. It would seem, easy for either you or I to join a men's group. And yet we may face some challenges, some growth opportunities, some differences of opinion and perspective of how to do that along the way. New Thought gives us the tools and the tools, the practices on how to navigate those experiences, how to navigate those various, and we may find that group, regardless of how easy or simple it may have been to join, or how easy it may have appeared to match with us, we may also have that opportunity to say, no, I'm going to go over here and do this other thing for a while. And thank you very much. And good luck to you all, and see you later. So I'm going to ask my poor puppy dog to please be quiet as she has snuck her way into the studio here, so I apologize for that, folks. So, but I think there really is a place where we've got to get back to that sense of belonging and being able to articulate that. Where is it I belong? Where do I feel I belong in this great mix of everything that keeps the everything moving forward?
Yeah, and you alluded to it and spoke to it. I'm gonna add it in a different light. That is where we need the rites of passages. That is where we need to come together as like souls to get that sense of belonging, because there's a resonance between us. There's an understanding. There's a lived experience that says we are kindred spirits. However you figure that out. Sometimes it's physical, right? Sometimes it's mental. Sometimes it's a whole bunch of stuff. But there is a way of figuring out your resonant group, your affinity group in spirit. And when that happens, now you need a rites of passage. Men's group, women's group, kids group, any group, name a group that has a lot of commonality, have experience that they can learn from each other, and then go a beacon for that idea. No volume.
Muted there. I remember, I'm reminded of the work our dear friend Reverend Eamon Duffy does with his men's community, and he shares very powerfully on this same subject, that we have got to have more rites of passage programming things, and I guess in some ways it feels like that has that been an Achilles heel for New Thought for so long. Have we babysat the youngsters and tolerated the teenagers and just completely overlooked the young adults in this movement, and some would say purely based on money, on their ability to contribute? But can we, go ahead.
I would think, like, and I just look back on my history, right? I think about the young people leaving church, establishment, whatever. Right? They did that when it no longer gave them any sense of drive, right? There was nothing new, looking at it holistically. And it was just, at that point, it got to be a social thing, right? And then now the social spirits, these kids don't like those kids, or they don't match those kids. So now it gets cliquish. And then the kids leave. And in my opinion, as opposed to having something for them when they begin to splinter off in these soul groups, these affinity groups, then you figure out, how do we create a program that speaks to that, or at least supports and value that and takes its input. We didn't do that with the young people. We kept telling them what to do, and had some opportunities, but that's not what we did.
And my experience of New Thought is and this may not be true of all organizations and all of the family branches, and it's not to say there aren't good people doing good work out there, but at a certain point, it's okay. We just chalk off that whole generation, and we kind of pray and hope that they'll come back when they get older. Again, cynically, we hope and pray they'll come back when life gets harder, and we hope and pray that when life gets hard, they'll come back to us and find solace and healing and support, when what we ought to be doing would be nurturing their embrace of this all the way along, so that we don't have to go through the hurt and the suffering and all the rest of
it. And that's basically what we have to provide for, right? I mean, because everybody's going to split at some point, going to have whatever. But long as we have, if you know, they always said in the country with children, if you plant the seed and it's in good soil, sooner or later they're going to catch up, right?
Yeah.
Given the right conditions. And so we have to give the. I mean, think about what a 10-year-old has in a smartphone, and wherever you are on the spectrum, think about what you had at 10 years old. You can't even think about it. You can't think about it.
I'm not exaggerating I'm not exaggerating when I said we had a couple of cans and a string. At 10 years old, we really did. We were at 10 years old, we were still playing with a couple of cans and a string to see if it really worked. And yeah, you're right. I haven't thought of it that in that regard in a long, long time. But
you know, so when we think about what's needed to get these young minds that are, you know, to everything, I was leaving it at that. I won't lock it in a corner. But when we are able to teach, and this will be for everybody, right? One of the things about the indigenous communities around the world is that this idea of rites of passages is part of the whole thing. We're talking about generation, like passing this information on. I forget the Native American tribe, and it may be somewhat of a ubiquitous idea that when they make decisions, they make them with the understanding and idea of how it's going to land 7 generations later. 7. I can't comprehend hardly 1 generation. Now imagine if that's your way of life, right? So when you understand cause and effect are not closely related. I may do something today, it may be expedient today, but down the road it's going to be catastrophic. And so that's when I came to New Thought, that's what I thought of, right? I haven't had different experiences in different religions and looking at this is how do we reconstruct the whole? None of us got the whole. Let's not be fooling ourselves. But New Thought is a great container because it comes under the auspice to say, I am just a container to bring it all together.
And this is part of that plant a tree that you'll never sit under the shade of. Plant the tree that you know you will never see the full growth, the maturity of the seed. The bamboo is another great one because you may not see growth for 7 years. You may see nothing for a decade. But then overnight you have a forest, and from there you can't control it. And forget about it. It gets tall, it gets everywhere, and you can't like morning glories. You can't get rid of the damn things once they get into your yard, right? So let's trust that New Thought has been percolating, has been growing. Let's not rip it up and see it and ensure that it is. Let's keep stay the course and continue to teach this in new and innovative ways with those with the ears to hear, and continue to live it, but live it in such a demonstrable way that people want to know, brother, what is it you got? Man, what is it you got? I want to know. You got to tell me, what is it you got? And we want to live it to that degree.
Yeah, no, without a doubt. And you just got me excited about that, because when you think about what Ernest started teaching first, religious science, the first paragraph or the first couple of sentences in the book he wrote that is the masterpiece for the whole teaching says, I look forward to the day that spirituality and science and religion and science and psychology and science, basically unpacking that word, when all life can begin to look at this spiritual invisible realm and this physical realm and figure out they're one and the same. And when they walk hand in hand, then you can become the master of your fate. And that's what we got to teach, because that's what the teaching is.
Right. That's what the teaching is.
Create your thinking, create your life. That's what the teaching is. But it has to be holistic, or else sustainability won't be there.
Yeah. Our brother Michael Benjamin's chatting along with us. Hello, sir. Good to see you. He says, it seems to me that the New Thought Centers who have decent numbers in youth programs really have young leaders with the IT factors, with the it factors. Yes, I would agree with you, Michael. And one of the things that I think I've seen over the years is it is really difficult, even in the larger of the centers, to cultivate that sort of leadership over time. Because those young leaders are not as the population is not as dense. They're a little more fewer and farther between in those teenage years than the people that come along. It's interesting. I saw a picture recently. A friend of ours requested I try to find a picture, and I found a picture from one of our old retreats in ministerial school, where there's like 20 of us or something, 25 of us or something. And it's like, wow, all the various connections. But when you look at those pictures, it's really rare that there was somebody in youth leadership that found their way into those types of greater leadership roles, or were able to maintain a teen community. And eventually you grow out. It's obvious. If you're a leader at 17 in a teen group, you're going to grow out of that leadership role, definable timeline. So the longevity of those communities, Michael, I think plays a huge role in it, and an overarching community's commitment to invest in that area of their ministry.
And it also speaks to the idea across any organization, succession planning. The 17-year-old youth leader ain't gonna be 17 years forever, right? So when I have these groups of young people, we have to start looking at who's the next leader, next 2-3 leaders. So we start having them groom is a bad word, having them educate the young kids on what it means, what it takes to be a leader if there's something that you want to do.
Right.
Or even if you don't want to do it, to be a part of the belonging, this is what it takes to be belonging in this, for everybody to, get the spark from doing this. However that spark happens.
Yep.
Because I think, one thing you mentioned back was about this flow, this divine flow. This universe is flowing and has been flowing endlessly, right? Yep. And it has not gotten its own way enough to kill itself, at least not to this point. And it's been around a few billion years, so I'm thinking there's something to that. We have to begin to model that, right? We have to begin to model that, I think, because without that, this idea of when a tree lets go the acorns or the pine cones in the winter, it already knows that I'm already setting up the next oak trees and pine trees. So that's how we have to begin to look. Like you said, I'm gonna plant the tree, but I'm gonna live this life. I'm gonna be an example. I'm gonna be a teacher for someone that I may never know got the lesson. Right.
Because we never, and true, we never know when we're going to provide the shade for a new generation. Perhaps not the next generation, perhaps not even the generation after that, but we might be providing, and let's tie it back in, we might be providing the shade that'll nurture the 7th generation down the road. Mm-hmm. by doing what it is we do. But
we have to start with that intention. This has to be an intentional thing. It can't be haphazard. Because if
Right.
if it's not intentional, there's no energy behind it. There's no vision behind it. There's no visualization behind it. It's just an errant piece of wind or cloud blowing in the wind.
Well, I don't think we're here to be blowing in the wind. So let's go to a break and grab a drink of water, refresh and restart. We've got just a couple of reminders of some new things coming up. So pay attention to this one, folks. We've got something you haven't seen before in here. And we're going to be back with more of New Thought today. After these messages, stay tuned. We'll be right back.
New Thought Media Network proudly presents the 2025 Season for Nonviolence 64-day meditation series, January 30th through April 4th. New meditations published daily at 6 a.m. Eastern Time on our YouTube channel. Join us as we carry the vision of a world that works for all. Only on New Thought Media Network. Learn more at www.ntmedia.org.
And we're back with more of New Thought today here on the New Thought Media Network. I'm Dr. Robert Brzezinski, my dear colleague and friend, Reverend Elzia Sekou, and come to you every Tuesday at 2 p.m. Mountain Time with some inspiring interviews and conversation. We got some interviews coming up we're going to talk about, but I can see my brother Z's got a point he wants to make.
No, I love those two moments that just came up, because to me that's how you build community, right? You have to acknowledge, right? And so by saying, hey, we're going to acknowledge on the meditation that was 3 leaders from 3 different perspectives that had that idea of oneness, peace, come together. And then the Black History thing, trying to incorporate all parts so everybody can do their part. I love it.
Yep. Thank you. It's interesting. I was in a conversation recently and the question came up. They're like, what can you do to advance our DEI, or what could you do, or what would you do to advance our DEI initiative? And I was like, oh, I'm the middle-aged white guy in the room. Not really my job, and people aren't going to respect it as much. But what I can do, so I can't go out front and say, you got to listen to these people, right? But what I can do is I can do my best to sit in the background and platform those voices that are not being heard, and be a champion to say, no, I'm going to keep my mouth shut so this group can speak, so this voice can be heard, so this perspective can be heard and honored and celebrated.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. It's all needed. I would stand to say that for anyone who had a Thanksgiving pastry of any kind that was sweet, so from pie to cookies, you pick, whichever one it was. If they left,
people had one, yeah.
And the punchline is this: none of them went without some form of sweetening. Now, whether that's agave or sugar or honey or whatever you was normally used in that pastry for sweeteners, if it was taken out, you would not be eating that cookie, cake, pie, because it takes the wholeness of it. It takes all the ingredients to make the cake or the pie or the life that we're talking about we want to create and have it work for everything.
Yeah. I love it. Dear brother Michael, Reverend Michael Benjamin's still with us too. He's saying perhaps singers who have a budget could seek out, retain voice coaches and music teachers and offer lower scholarship instruction, give the youth a forum to perform. Yes, absolutely. Right. And I think that's part of what we're talking about here, Michael, is that each community is going to have to, in the future here, as we continue to move forward in this brave new world that is New Thought, that New Thought has a part to play in, each community, I think, would be better served by finding that place that they can best serve, and not everybody trying to do everything. And I don't think it's a matter of, hey, what did you guys try? What worked for you? Because it needs to be more organic. What is it that the community that is built around inherently, that we can't have that agenda of this is what's going to do it. This one thing I saw once will save the day, or this. But I love the idea of exploring these various things, because this idea to me gives people skills and tools, gives you skills and tools that aren't directly tied with trying to make their way in the world as a minister. We want to remember these teenagers do not see the world the way we see it, and do not want to necessarily become what we are. So, but if we can give them skills, so if we can help them to learn how to perform, to sing, or as speakers, and as professional style speakers in churches or in various programs, all those different things, each community needs to find where they feel called, and then we can help specialize, and then you can call in the people that will make it happen or help specialize to make it happen without trying to be everything for everybody. And I think there's a lot of communities in New Thought right now that that might have a tough time articulating that mission for themselves.
Well, you know what I would say, or how I would express that after hearing what you said, and I think that's 100%, is we have to begin to look at the organization as a neural network, just like the neural network of the body, of the brain, that is one diffuse level of energy that gets awakened when it's needed. Other than that, that's why your body is a homeostasis machine. It stays at 98.6 or whatever the number is, and right? But that's because it's homeostasis, and it's the preservation of living in the flow, right? Living in that moment. But when time calls, if your hand catches fire, it moves, right? And these different parts of the body worked together to make that move, right? It didn't just move. There was a neural network that sent the signal, and then everything went to work on that signal. Right. And then once it got fixed, it laid back down and said, I'm in the flow. That's how we have to begin to teach this teaching, which is how it is, I understand it. It's supposed to be taught to do this thing called life, to be in the flow of
it. And to be in the flow. So what I just heard, to be in the flow is also part of embracing the ebb and the flow. And in that embrace, we're going to experience fear. We're going to have experiences that spark various levels of fear in our lives based on our past experiences, based on our lived experiences to this point. But again, I think tying in with what you're saying here, it's about living it. And can I in the moments of the most need, in the moments of the darkest hours, can I fall back and rely on these principles and practices to see me through? I believe yes.
Oh yeah. And it's like those saying, if you don't want to go through it, you want to grow through it. Right. So if you're just going through life and you're having good times or bad times, in my opinion, right? If you're not growing from that, then there's a question to be asked. Because when I grow from a bad spot, if you will, to a good spot here, and it's this big, I learn all of that, what it takes to get on the other side of that. So when I get ready to speak to a thing, I can speak from the breadth and the depth of it, from the emotional side, from the whole thing. But if you haven't lived it or made some parallel or correspondence in life that equates to it, gonna miss it, right? I love the story where Ram Dass said he was giving a speech in India, and he was giving one of his outlandish, wild expressions of what he had transformed into, and the lady was sitting there crocheting. And she was nodding. She got more and more animated, and he got more and more outlandish. And he went to her after and asked, I'm talking about some, his times with LSD and stuff like that. And she said, I understood everything that you said because I crochet. She was able to transform all of that into her experiences. Right. And crocheting. That's the law of correspondence. So I'm there. So now we can talk in that space, me having never did what you did, and you may not have never done what I did.
It is so, if you take the time to look at it, to me, it is so obvious and so easy to see the oneness in everything. Now,
everything.
Right. Now, I do a pretty good job of surrounding myself and creating an environment where I'm very selective at what sort of, let's say, disruptions I allow into my universe, into my world, into my environment. I'm very selective of how I get to experience some of the wider variety of this planet, but I do to make sure that I'm aware of it, right? I listen to those other sources of information, and but I don't necessarily go hang out at the what am I trying to think of here? I don't necessarily go hang out at satanic rituals. I don't necessarily go hang out at the Jewish synagogue. I don't necessarily go hang out at the Christian church. I don't necessarily go hang out in all these various places. And yet I can feel confident that given the necessity or the opportunity, I can find the oneness in any one of those types of belief systems. That necessity for the variety of belief and experience, so that you and I get to do this without all them getting to do what they do. You and I wouldn't get to do what we do, right?
No. And I think about, Ernest was so in tune. When he coined the phrase, he goes through all these different attributes, if you will, for the thing unseen. And then he brilliantly says the thing itself, right? The thing itself, right? There's no way to explain the thing itself. You have to experience the thing itself. And so for him, I think to use that expression to say, this is the divine, meaning this oneness is the divine, this vibration that I'm sure we've all been in situations across any spectrum, physical, mental, emotional, spiritual, where the group just vibed. And it was like, whether you were playing kickball or whether you was, in a play or whatever it was, that thing itself took control and it just flowed. How do you describe that? How do you put a name on that? It's just the thing itself. Gets rid of a lot of the I'm this, do that, and we do that everywhere. I'm black, I'm white, I'm this, I'm that. Not that you aren't, and I need that at the table fully. I don't need you to downplay any of it. I need you to bring that true self. But when you do that, and I bring my true self, and we understand the oneness, now we got a Maracaba, as they say, we got a flying machine.
We got a flying machine. Yeah. Oh no, I'm with you there. Everything.
Go
ahead.
Go. No.
Everything we find today brings me back to a sense of how authentic can we really be? How absolutely raw and authentic, if necessary. But how authentic can we really be in this is who I am, this is where I hurt, this is where I celebrate, this is like the authenticity of the everyness of the everything of life. The good, the bad, the ugly, the nitty, the gritty, the right, the runny noses.
Yep. Do you make me sick?
Yeah. And that's not easy to, it's not easy to do. There's tons of study out there that it is very hard for any one person to truly care for more than 10 to 12 to 15 people in their lives. We don't have the mental capacity. We might have the mental capacity to know your name or to recognize people and to support and to have an idea of how people are shown. But to be in a deep level of authentic caring is and that's where we sort of started today, right? Is how do we create these circles of belonging? And that's one of those places. Where is my circle of caring as well? Now, the circle of belonging is bigger. You can belong to my circle and I can know about you and I can, again, have an idea of where your passions are, what your projects are, but I can't know enough about that many people and keep it in my head, in my heart, to be authentically caring when you most need it. Unless you're part of that circle for me. Then you know it and I know it. And when the hits the fan, there's no question in my ability and my commitment to the caring in that point, right? You with me?
Yeah, and I would like to say this that was there. I'd like to make it more implied in that goes all the way down from the familiar group to the resonated energy group, and that's where we got to go. We have to be able, I believe, not just to go beyond my physical group, because I'm going to get stuck on appearances. I'm bringing all the prejudice there, even though I'm altruistic. We are beings who understand polarity. And so as we understand polarity, there's one thing, but there's different degrees of that one thing that gets labeled to be different things. And if we get stuck anywhere, and if we can't span the globe, go back and forth on a rhythmic vibrational point, it gets to what we got. If I stay just on this fourth or that fourth, the bigger I go, if I go from a fourth to a half or half to a whole, now I can see more, I can do more. And that's what we all need. We need to see more, do more, and be aware that these groups, small groups to bigger groups, these wheel within a wheel, as they say.
Right. The wheel within the wheel. Hey, folks, we're going to take a quick break. Let a couple of our sponsors say hello. Let ourselves say thank you to our organizational sponsors and individual donors. However, we've got a bit more coming your way. We're going to wrap this up. Promise not to leave the conversation incomplete. So stay with us. Let your friends and family know what we're doing. We'll be right back after this. Stay with us on New Thought Media Network.
Please help us say thank you to our organizational sponsors, including the Hefferland Foundation, Affiliated New Thought Network, International New Thought Alliance, Science of Mind Archives and Library Foundation, Center for Spiritual Living Denver, Center for Spiritual Living Midtown, New Thought Philadelphia, Planned Happiness Institute, Summit Center for Spiritual Living, One Heart Retreats, Center for Spiritual Living on the Lake, Unity Kitchener, Unity Spiritual Center Ottawa, Om Center for Spiritual Living, Satya Center, Begin Within Ministries, Center for Spiritual Living North Jersey, Unity of Savannah, and the Center for Spiritual Living Seattle, as well as all of our individual donors. Thank you for being part of the New Thought Media Network. Please like, share, and subscribe. New Thought Media Network, positively inspiring.
Yes. Thank you to all of our organizational sponsors and individual donors. It's thanks to folks and organizations like you that we're able to share this mighty message out into the world. And it's always a great time to do that on Tuesdays with my dear brother, Reverend L. Zia here. So we have a great time doing this program. And we do have another program on Friday morning, 7 a.m. Mountain Time. Join us for Ministers Talking Shit any Friday morning, or catch that on its playlist on our YouTube channel as well. All of our programs are available in their own individual playlists. You can binge watch past episodes of all these conversations. And we've got a couple of interesting conversations coming up, Elzia. I want you to know about. Number one, New Year's Eve. We're not taking New Year's Eve off this year. So both Christmas Eve and New Year's Eve fall on a Tuesday. We have yet to decide on Christmas Eve, but it was decided for us earlier today on New Year's Eve that Reverend, I always want to say Reverend, but I can't, I'm not supposed to. Dr. Tracy Brown, RSCP, is going to be with us on New Year's Day. I think there's no better way to start off a look at the new year 2025 than with Dr. Tracy Brown. Going to be a great conversation plan for that, folks. And on the 17th of December, just 2 weeks away, Marianne Williamson is going to be with us, folks, live here in the studio on a Tuesday afternoon. We are going to be, we've got an opportunity to speak with her. She's got a new book, The Mystic Jesus. We're going to learn more about that as well. And as you know, we love to find out what people think. What is the future of New Thought? What does that hold? So please plan to join us as we gear up and ramp up for the end of the year and to step into 2025 with the raise the vibe in 25. Z, that's my mantra. I'm going for it. I'm claiming it. Before I hear anybody else use it, I'm taking it. Raise the vibe in 25.
Hey, I gotta get it. Well, that's a good one. I go next program. I'm gonna have one. Because I would have took that one naturally because it's the vibe. All right, but I got some. I'm working on something.
All right, good. So speaking of working on something, we should wrap all this up. You know, we started talking about, the day started with the idea of how do we walk the talk? How do we show up? And we've touched on a number of pieces of this. Again, for me, the big one is got to be authentic. Got to be authentic in what is our own individual passions and what are our community's passions. Not what we think people are going to buy, not what we think is the hip thing to be doing, not where we think we'll be able to attract more young people, but what is it that is truly mine to do at both the individual and the organizational level. So, Z, how about for you?
Mm-hmm. I mean, I would echo almost, but I'd say this. Now is the time for us to really take that inward journey, to really get in touch with the allness of it, the ups, the downs, so that you learn to tell your story, because that's what it's all about. It's your story. You can't tell anybody else's story. So when we can do that, you can even get a good actor, but we had some great actors to play Harriet Tubman, but they weren't Harriet Tubman. Let's be clear about that. And the story that's why they portraying her life can be so powerful and so moving, because she left the resonance, she left the picture, she left the sermon to be seen that carries forward. And so we got to go inside and learn to tell that story.
You just said something that's going to spark me for a long time. Holy schnooga. I don't believe you've probably said this or somebody said it, but it didn't land like it. The sermon to be seen.
Yes.
Reverend. Yeah. I want that. I want more of that. I want more of all of us being that in the world, being that in the organizations that we're a part of, the places where we serve, the places where we work, the places where we do commerce, the places everywhere we go to be the sermon that is seen. I love it.
Because there's a quick stanza. I'd rather see a sermon than to hear one any day. I'd rather one walk with me than just to show the way. The eye is a better pupil and more willing than the ear. Advice may be misleading, but examples are always clear.
There it is, folks. There it is. If you missed it, watch it on the replay. Nothing more we could say about it. Thank you, Z.
Yeah.
Good to be with you, my brother.
Yeah, that we can say that is the vibe. That is the vibe. That's what I'm saying. I'm riding with you.
That is the vibe. All right. And that is it for today, folks. That's all we've got time for. Thanks for being with us here on New Thought Today, part of the New Thought Media Network. Tune into all of our broadcasting. Check out our YouTube channel. Everything's on its own playlist. You can catch all the different programming throughout the day, throughout the week. Until next time, we want to wish you peace and richest blessings. Bye now.